All right, we'll get started with today's press conference. As a reminder, use the raise your hand feature, or you can text me to get in line as well. And we'll start with an opening statement from Coach Wells.
All right, good afternoon. Hope y'all are doing well. Hadn't seen you in a minute. I guess about mid-December, but obviously excited about the players we've added, to our family since December. Signing one today, but the other 6 transfers, which we're going to talk about a little bit here in a second individually, guys that fit our needs from a depth standpoint. We need to build competitive depth, and I think in recruiting, that's what you have to look at always is, are we building competitive depth? And we've added some preferred walk-ons in the last couple weeks that I do believe will add competitive depth in the rooms, but also in the 7 guys that we've added to the other 10. Yeah, that's right, 10 in December. We've got more to add. We'll continue to add throughout this spring as we go through the spring semester, and then we're going to turn our focus to the 2022 class, which has already started, but turn the vast majority of our focus to the 22 class. So with that being said, let me go through the signees. I'm just going to talk about a few of them, or all of the ones since December. I have not got a chance to talk to you guys about any of them, especially the transfers, since we last spoke. So let's just go through each one of them. Amari Jones, freshman corner. There will be a freshman corner here from right here in town, Lubbock Coronado. What a great season that they had under Coach Parr. And really good program. Amari caught our eye 2 years ago at our camp. He ran very well, is long, tall, and was really raw at that time. He's really changed his game over the last couple years. It shows up on tape. Been very, very productive, and is the first high school DB that Coach Jones has signed. Since we've been here, it's kind of was part of the plan. Been on our radar all year, and really kind of kept quiet, kind of the way we recruited him. But he is, is a guy that we're really excited about because he has length, he has athleticism, long arms, and he's fast. And very athletic, great family, right here in our own backyard. Next one, Malik Dunlap. Malik is a transfer corner from NC State. He'll have 3 to play. And he looks like a safety. He's a safety body with corner skills. He is every bit of 6'3", and has got game experience starting at NC State. Played quite a bit this year. Matt Keeler from Coffeyville Community College, went to a prep school and then 1 semester at Coffeyville. Is a guy that we've known and recruited. That family, his brother to begin with, but some connections up there. And, Matt is an offensive lineman that is big, young, and fairly athletic. And so this guy's got a big upside. A tackle, can play either side. And I know Coach Farmer's fired up about him. Next guy, O-lineman again, TJ Stormont. TJ, grad transfer 1 year, tackle from TCU. And TCU, excuse me. TJ, that's one of those that when you have a chance to recruit him, you remember him because of his film. I think his film is his resume, speaks volumes. Went back and just watched other games just to make sure. The guy had a really good year, really middle of the year to the last half of the season, and very productive. He's good on the edge in the run game, but he's athletic in the pass game, and he's I think he's got a bright future. Because I think he'll play on Sundays. And so the next 12 months here at Texas Tech with Dave Scholes and Steve Farmer, I think, are critical, again, for really the last chapter of his development, which has been very good up until this point. So we're looking forward to him contributing really quickly. Josiah Pierre is a linebacker that came from Florida. Josiah because of COVID and a red shirt, will actually still be a freshman and have 4 years of eligibility. He was a midterm guy that actually is going on to his 3rd year in college, but he's still a freshman. And I know not just you guys, it's weird for me too, just because of the whole COVID thing. But he is not a true freshman. I mean, he's going into his 3rd year in college. And athletic, big, inside linebacker. Marquis Waters, grad transfer, who will have 1 year free safety out of Duke, was a captain and a multi-year starter there. Obviously, the connection with Coach Jones is big. Very mature, going to be a great leader in the secondary for us, and has already started off really good here in the weight room. And then the last one is just the most recent is Rayshad Williams. Rayshad is another tall corner, every bit of 6'2", that has played at UCLA. A lot more 2 years ago. Again, 3 years to play, going into his fourth year in college. 3.5 years technically right now, fourth year next year. But is a guy that played a whole lot more as a redshirt freshman than he did this year due to an injury early on in training camp, which, as you guys remember, in the Pac-12, training camp was later, about mid-fall. And so those are our 6 transfers added to the one high school guy that we signed. Like I mentioned earlier, we will continue to recruit and evaluate and sign guys. We've got a few more scholarships left for this spring, and then the focus now goes to all 2022 targets. Let me talk about spring football, transition into spring football. You know, right now we're in the second full week of off-season under Coach Scholes. Off-season program is paramount in our success here at Texas Tech. One of the tough things of COVID last year, I thought we had a really good off-season that had started. And we're just all hoping for a normal, uninterrupted spring. It looks like right now, and my hope is that we have a normal spring practice. Our program is still going through all the COVID-19 protocols with our medical staff, and they're doing a great job with that. But we have the 10 out of the 11, 10 guys here right now that are midterm, new guys into the program. So that would include the 6 signees and 4 high school signees in December: Baron Morton, Jaron Bradley, Jed Castles, and Mason Tharp. So we've got 10 new guys, scholarship guys, that have started with Coach Scholes. Like I said, 2 weeks into it. I'm excited about, seeing our offseason development and our strength gains, as well as football. We're installing a new offense and all the things with Coach Cumbie, and so this is very important. We will start spring practice mid-April. We will have a spring game, mid-March, I apologize. Spring game is going to be mid-April, and we'll send you guys, I think we're going to release this in the next few days to maybe early next week, our spring practice schedule, so you guys will know it and have that in hand. All right, and then the last thing I want to do is just update you guys going into spring ball, just on some of the injury updates. And so as we talk this through, I know I'm really a month and a half away, but not sure when's the next time I'm going to talk to you. So I'm just giving you updates here personnel-wise. Malik Dunlap, who we did talk about, Malik just underwent shoulder surgery yesterday. Left over from the season was an injury that we knew about during recruiting, and kind of go back and forth between rehab, and our medical staff wanted to do the surgery. Malik wanted to do the surgery. He worked out with Coach Scholes for about 10 days, limited, but he'll do that and had that. He'll be out this spring. The other 2 shoulder surgeries that'll be out this spring as they rehab are Gilbert Abenemy and Xavier White. Rico's had his knee surgery, successful, grinding in his rehab. He'll be out this spring and full go for all 4 of these guys in June when we come back for our summer workouts. Casey Verholst had his low back surgery in December, and I believe this spring we'll see, but he's going to progress to some individual drills. He'll be limited during spring ball this year. The other one is Dawson Deaton. He got his shoulder cleaned up, really just minor procedure, and he will go through spring ball in a limited role. Obviously, I know what Dawson can do, and 2 years, being a 2-year plus starter and a veteran guy, needs individual, and we'll limit him throughout the spring. And then these 3 guys will be limited as we start spring, and then progressing to hopefully full at towards the end of spring, and that's Nelson and Banasour. He had the bicep injury, which led to surgery in, I believe, late September, early October. And then J.J. Sparkman with his shoulder, and then Donovan Smith with his shoulder. Donovan will be ready right out of the gate in spring ball to throw. He's already started throwing as part of his rehab, but he'll be on a pitch count limited that will increase as we go through spring. So there that is. Little injury update. And so, Matt, that's all I got right now. If you want to open it up, Dowdy, for some questions.
All right, we'll start with Stephen Hawkins.
Hey, Mac, you kind of addressed quite a bit with the idea that you've got some scholarships available, but the early signing period obviously changed everything a couple of years ago, but then no in-person recruiting last year or so. You've got teams that are still playing FCS and all this. How has that just kind of really changed everything, knowing you're really maybe not completely finished for this signing class?
Yeah, it was the most, I don't know, non-drama signing day I think I've ever been around. But it has, Stephen, it really has changed the recruiting landscape. The transfer portal has the Zoom calls right here, all of our Zoom stuff, and being, I mentioned in December, it's the first time we'd ever signed a class without official visits. And so these guys are all coming. Every one of these guys are coming sight unseen, unless they'd been here at an earlier time in their high school career. And for all these transfers, that wasn't the case. So, I'd say props to our recruiting staff and our coaching staff for establishing those relationships as best can be through FaceTime, through virtual, through Zooms, and all the things that we're forced to do. And there's some good out of it. There really is. And I think there's some things that we've learned and some things that we'll take in, hopefully post-COVID, when we can start getting recruits on campus, that we'll still use some of this. So I think you live and you learn. We'll continue to recruit this spring, and we'll see if the rules change at some point late this spring or this summer.
Obviously, my last question I got for you. Obviously, you've got a couple of guys that are coming back that would have been seniors but got the eligibility. How much did that change things? I know there's some expanded numbers next year to account for that, but how did that kind of change things as you look forward? Because you got a plan not only for next year but the year after that when those guys are out of the system.
Yeah, Stephen, twofold to that question. Number one, kind of fires me up that we had 10 seniors choose to come back. And a couple of those guys had draft grades. The rest of them could have tried to go and really competed for those kind of opportunities, but they chose to come back to Texas Tech. So I think what that does is it shows you how the culture in our locker room is changing and the vibe here, and that these guys really truly believe we are close to breaking through, and they want to be a part of that as a team, and then they want to be a part of it individually through getting coached, their skill development, as well as their continued physical and nutritional development under Dave Scholes and his staff. So I think that's the first thing. And the second part of your question is, it's probably the biggest gray area for all of us, is how big is the 2022 signing class right now, because you don't know. You have these super seniors, as some are calling them, and they don't add to your total scholarship count, but yet you've got juniors that are in their fourth and fifth year of college that potentially could be leaving in December for the NFL. And so you're guessing at that. Plus the ease of the transfer portal to get in and to be eligible immediately. I should say, if there's a scholarship available for them on the other end, and some there are, and a lot they're not. And we all know those numbers right now, and that's a tough pool to be in for some guys. But I think, Stephen, the uncertainty of exactly what your recruiting class next year is going to look like is a real thing. Typically, you know exactly how many I can sign, and really none of us really know that number yet.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Go to Brandon Solis.
Hey, Coach, just speaking about you're bringing guys into spring, you want to keep adding to the roster. Numbers-wise, how many guys are you looking to add specifically, and what position groups are kind of priority for you?
Yeah, we got a few more, Brandon. Really one at every position on defense. I think, again, you're trying to, like, refer to my earlier comment, we're trying to build competitive depth, and you're still trying to catch up on some recruiting numbers from a few years ago. And so, I think a little bit at every position, and potentially, another O-lineman or receiver, just, again, from a numbers game.
Okay, and then the last one for me, more on TJ Stormont. Can he kind of just go throughout the line, be fluid, kind of that cross-training guy, or is he going to be specifically to tackle as he was at DC?
Yeah, good question. I believe he can play both tackles, but I do believe he's big and strong enough to play guard. You guys know we've talked quite a bit. We cross-train our O-linemen. That may be something that we kind of experiment with in the spring or even training camp if he can play guard. And I think just even practice experience for a guy like TJ would help him in the future. If he plays no reps at guard this year and they're all at tackle, that would help him, I believe, in his NFL stock and, just the experience of doing that and because you're going to need to be cross-trained to go to the NFL.
Go to Carlos Silva.
Matt, you've already talked about it with the competitive depth, but in terms of what the transfer portal has been able to do for you all and get impact players such as a Zach McPherson and all those guys, how has that helped you just build your experience and just make the classification, so to speak, balanced? When you came in, you had a very young team.
Yeah, we had a young team, Carlos, and we had some holes in terms of numbers in certain positions, and we needed to fill them quickly. So the transfer portal has been very productive. It's been very good for Texas Tech. I think we've built part of our brand of getting old and then really trying to stay old. So it's been a mix of high school athletes, high school football players, namely from the state of Texas, right? A few from out of state, but mostly from the state of Texas. And then transfers, a few junior college guys. Started out, Carlos, 2 years ago, more grad transfers, and then now it's gone more to 4-4 transfers. And so I think we're going to need to build that locker room, in those ways. The other thing, Carlos, that you look at now is bringing in transfers in certain classifications at certain positions for that depth. They're all not going to be seniors. And so as you're looking at it, we even talked about the linebacker position. Right now we're really, really old at linebacker. You get what I think 3 seniors, Rico, Schooler, and Morgenstern that all chose to come back that are still seniors. And you have, really fourth-year juniors in Merriweather, Kosai Eldridge, Brandon Randall. And so we're really top-heavy in terms of how old they are. And so you look at a Josiah Pierre is a freshman in classification, but yet he's going on his third year in college. So looking at doing some of that to be able to balance those classes out and recruiting is something we have to keep an eye at.
Your answer kind of led into my last question, but in terms of just finding those guys to where they have those 2 to 3 years, and like you said, in the uniqueness of some of those guys already having some experience, just how unique of it is it from a coaching staff standpoint to know that you've already got guys that have that college experience compared to maybe where you're recruiting a high school kid and you won't know how good they are for about a year or 2?
Yeah, I think there has to be a mix. Certainly we've seen some freshman high school guys come in and contribute at Texas Tech right away and been very successful. So I know that can happen. But those transfers, for the most part, you're expecting them to come in and compete. Never promise any of them a starting job, but you're recruiting them to be competitive immediately and have that opportunity to compete for immediate playing time.
Go to Joe Yeager.
Yeah, Coach, are you planning on standing pat at the quarterback position, or might you possibly still bring somebody in?
Yeah, Joe, I think that position room is exactly like the rest of them, that we still have some scholarships available. We know that. We're going to see these guys in Coach Cumby's offense for the first time this spring. Whether it's Henry or it's Maverick, both of those guys from returning standpoints, but also our 2 freshmen that we haven't seen, Baron Morton and Donovan Smith. Donovan we didn't get to see much last year because of coming off injury. So we'll evaluate that. We do have scholarships available for the rest of spring, and I think it's a room that you want it to be competitive. Quarterbacks are going to come in and compete, and right now we're going to see those guys. There's only one guy that can go at one time, and that's what makes that, Joe, difficult to really evaluate on a ton of reps, because you need to give all of them reps. But if I think if we need to add a guy to that room, we certainly will.
We'll go to Chuck Carlton.
Yeah, Matt, I had 2 questions looking ahead to spring. One, with everything that you went through and endured and learned during the season, how much more comfortable are you going into the spring? timing of this as far as you could in terms of maybe pushing it back, hoping, with the vaccine, with, maybe the pandemic would be a little more under control, or was that anything that you factored into, your decision?
Yeah, Chuck, that's a good question on the timing. Your question on the timing of spring practice. The availability of the vaccine didn't really play into it because I believe hopefully we'll all have it at some point this spring. Really, what I thought about was two things, and we did back it up to mid-March, so it's a legit 2.5 weeks later than we have started the last couple years. It was more for two things. Number one, so we could have as long as off-season program in the weight room and running with Coach Scholes. And then the second the second reason there was to give Coach Cumbie and the offensive staff a little bit more time to install and to teach the offensive system before we get into spring. So that was really the two biggest factors. Injury-wise, Chuck, by moving it back, we do some of those guys that I mentioned that were limited. It helps a J.J. Sparkman and a Donovan and Nelson get a little bit more through the rehab process. It helps them. The guys that were out, they were already out, so it didn't matter if we started early or late. And I'm sorry, you had a first question. Can you repeat it for me, Chuck?
The learning experience from this past season that you can take into spring in terms of dealing with. I mean, you guys were as hard hit as anybody by COVID-19. I'm just curious, how can you apply that in spring, all the knowledge you?
Well, I think it seems like every day's a new day with COVID, especially early in the process. None of us knew how to navigate it. I think Grant Stovall and Drew Kruger and our entire medical staff did a tremendous job. Our players did a great job. My hat's off to them for all that they gave up, sacrificed, and endured. Really, all the college athletes across the country. You're seeing it right now with basketball. These kids it's not a normal college experience for any of these kids. I respect the heck out of them and what they did just to get through the season and play through the season. It was tough on them. The stress, the undue, I think, just worrying. Am I going to pass the next test? Are we playing? Go all the way back to the summer. We didn't even know if there was going to be a season. So it's that stress and the, I don't know the right word, Chuck, but there was a lot that just continued to add on to these players, I think, in terms of the uncertainty is probably the best word, really. And so I think as you learn through it, we learned some different ways in August how to practice. So if it hits us again this spring, quite frankly, quite a bit of our players and our staff have now gotten it. So, I guess we'll learn if we get positive twice. I don't know. We'll have to live through that. But we're going through all the protocols, and my hope is just that we have a normal spring as best we can. That's how we're planning it. Because we didn't have one last year. We only got through 4 practices. So I feel like this is, that first spring that we were here was a big learning experience for all of us. And then last year we never had a spring ball. So.
Go to Ronald Clark.
Coach, you talked about it a little bit early, but speaking of, Amari, how important is it to this staff to, record some of the best talent right here in your own backyard?
Yeah. Ronald, there is good talent in, first of all, in the city of Lubbock, but in the surrounding cities in West Texas. We're certainly, as soon as we identify a guy that we think that can help us win in the Big 12, we're gonna offer him and we're gonna recruit. And I think we've shown to do that and recruit him hard. And there's very, very few that we've lost that we have offered and gone after, and we want to continue to do that. And we will continue to evaluate guys in Lubbock and West Texas. And sometimes the process is slower than others, but we're going to do our due diligence and recruit the best players wherever they are, across the state, transfer portal, out of state. But there are certainly a lot of good players, and I think you've seen the last couple years, some of the ones that we have taken out of West Texas have come in and contributed very early, and we're excited about those.
Go to Shehan at Dave Campbell's.
Hey, so I'm curious with evaluation, both in 21 and 22. I mean, how difficult does all of this make it that you're not getting in person, that you're not getting camps, and I guess does that make you a little bit more willing to go to the transfer portal to get some guys who you've seen against competition you know?
Yeah, good point. I think we all hope that the quiet period kicks in as coaches late this spring, and we have camps on our campus so we can see them. We believe in our in-person evaluations quite a bit. So obviously it's made it very difficult. You're evaluating tape, and in the transfer portal, like you mentioned, which is very realistic, and it's a great observation by you and a great point by you, is you are evaluating it against maybe more known competition, similar competition, and you're seeing guys and their skill set translate and where they're at. And some transfers are older and some are younger, but you certainly can get a pretty good gauge. I think the thing that we got to continue to do, and we are and we have to, is evaluate the character of the young man. Why are they leaving? I think there has to be a mutual ground in terms of what we need and also what they need. You need to have the same thing for a transfer to work. And knock on wood, a lot of our transfers have played, and they've played early, and they've played very, very well, and it's worked out. 100% they've been great in the locker room and the culture and the leadership that they can provide. And so I certainly believe in high school guys and developing them. But again, I think for us as Texas Tech, a unique situation, we're going to build it with really good high school players that could come in and can play right now. That I think we've shown that happens, and then the transfer portal. And we do got to stay old. We got to get old, and we got to stay old here and to be able to compete and beat the teams that we need to beat in this league.
Obviously, it's Tech and your staff has done a really good job of getting on guys early. How do you kind of make up that advantage when obviously you're not seeing these guys as early, when you're recruiting high school kids?
Yeah, I think it's just really good organization by our assistant coaches and our in conjunction with our recruiting staff and being on guys and doing their due diligence from the evaluation process to getting them on the phone to Zooms and getting about as in-depth as you can with doing just what we're doing right here.
All right, unless we have any other questions, that should do it for today's press conference. Thank you for participating, and we'll talk to you in the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.